Hey horror fans, welcome back to Room 237, and this is not a Alfred Hitchcock film because I am in the midst of my Hitchcock marathon. This is one of the handful of random films that I've got recently, and this is a classic that I've not seen until now, and it is a haunted house movie, which I've said before, I don't like paranormal, supernatural, spooky ghost films. Those are really the ones within the last 20 years. Pretty much since 2000, especially. Once before that, classic haunted house movies I really enjoy. Amityville Horror, Legend of Hell House, which I have to review both of those. House on Haunted Hill is probably still my favorite, which, if you know the twist to that, it doesn't really count. And now this film, which is a 1980 film from Canada, and that is The Changeling with George C. Scott. I've always heard about this film, but I had never seen it. And George C. Scott is a great actor. I haven't seen a lot of his stuff, but when I do see him, I really enjoy him. Like, he plays Scrooge in my favorite version of A Christmas Carol. And this has got to be one of the best haunted house films I've ever seen. It's not just very well made, but there's a sophistication to it. It's not schlocky or cheesy at all. It feels superior on a bunch of levels. Like I said, a sophistication. It almost feels like an intellectual kind of haunted house film. George C. Scott plays this guy, John Russell, who he's a music composer. I think he's a professor of music. He's on a holiday with his wife and young daughter. The car breaks down. They're on the side of the road. He goes over to a phone booth to call for help. They're having a snowball fight, and this big truck comes along, loses control, hits the car, and hits and kills them. So he loses his wife and daughter, and he moves into this big house that is haunted. And it's one of those movies where it's like he's trying to solve the mystery of who the ghost is, why he wants to communicate with him, what happened to, the person that became the ghost. It also stars Trish Van Devere, who looks really familiar. I'm sure I've seen her before. She won a Golden Globe for One Is a Lonely Number. 1976 version of Beauty and the Beast. Nothing else I've seen. Okay, maybe I haven't. Melvin Douglas, John Colicos, Jean Marsh, Helen Burns, and Madeline Sherwood. That sounds familiar. Nothing I've seen her in. Directed by Peter Medak. Story by Russell Hunter. Released in 1980. Is a Canadian film. On a budget of $600,000. $600,000. This does not look like a $600,000 film. I mean, in a way, it kind of does. because nothing really crazy or like effects wise happens. It is a very low key film, but the way it's made, it doesn't look, especially for what else was coming out at that time, which, this 1980 was like the genesis of the slasher boom. Uh, yeah, they definitely knew what they were doing with $600,000, especially with the cinematography. That's whose name I wanted to look at. John Coquillon, I'm guessing. Music by Rick Wilkins. But yeah, the cinematography is fantastic in this. I'm blown away at $600,000. 12 million at the box office, so that is, you know, it's modest, but it's a hit. And George C. Scott, he's. I was reading Roger Ebert's review of this film, and I have to agree. George C. Scott, he's very rational. He's very. He seems very smart. He's not your typical horror movie haunted house person. You know, he doesn't do things that, for example, like Paranormal Activity. I would that is the spectrum. You have the Changeling, and you have Paranormal Activity, where he's like, oh, let's, clearly the Ouija board has pissed it off. Oh well, let's just do everything that pisses it off. He's more into solving the mystery because he feels the spirits of the house are trying to communicate with him and not scare him away. At least at first. But then, as he gets closer to solving the mystery, that's when eventually he's like, like, you goddamn son of a bitch, what do you want from me? It starts off with this very, like, hollow banging sound at 6 o'clock in the morning. It sounds like pipes or whatever. Very loud knocking and banging. And, or he goes outside and he hears glass break. He picks it up and it's red stained glass. He realizes those are only the attic windows. But you can't get in that room because someone built shelves over the doors. And just, I'm still just boggled by $600,000. And, when he really starts looking into it when he gets into the attic. He notices it's kind of a bedroom. And he finds, certain, like, collectibles or whatever that's dated 1909. He finds a music box that happens to be the same tempo and melody as something he just composed. And that's why he thinks the ghost is trying to communicate with him. He brings in mediums, and of course he's not really super believing a lot of it. He pretty much just, like, you kind of get the idea. He doesn't even really want to, like, have a conversation with it. He just wants to know, like, why you doing this? What can I do so it can stop? And it's mostly really creepy scenes, like, for example, the scenes with the medium, or the mediums, because you have the one that's communicating, and she's kind of in a trance, and she's, like, scribbling what she's being told. The guy next to her is reading it. and we get this really cool panning shot all through the house, and it just gets darker and darker as we go further to like the attic. The way that was done is very creepy. He has this red ball with a white stripe, which was his daughter's ball. And, I think in a moment of letting go, he drives out to a bridge and he lets it go. But when he gets home, there's that probably the most famous shot from the movie, and it's been copied hundreds of times. He hears a noise from upstairs, the darkened upstairs, and the ball just bounces down the stairs. It's all wet. It's the same ball. Which, that's a great shot because the camera's down low. It gets darker as the staircase goes up, and it makes like a thunderous banging sound as it echoes through the house. It's small scenes like that makes this movie very effective. You find out that the ghost is a young boy named Joseph, who was drowned by his father. He had lost his sister in a similar accident to his own, George C. Scott's. And the father drowns him in his bath, which is in his bedroom. So that's our ghost, is this, 6-year-old son, Joseph. But this is where it kind of got confusing for me, because then we start getting into like a conspiracy territory. Because first he finds out the house had been vacant for 12 years before him, and then other people that had owned it had not really said anything about, paranormal activity. There's nothing about the house before 1920, and that's when all the spooky shit started. See if I can find exactly. Okay, Joseph was a crippled and sickly 6-year-old boy. So that's why there's also the wheelchair. Which there's even a scene where the wheelchair is almost like a ghostly scream, and then the wheelchair moves in front of the staircase. But he was murdered by his father in 1906. Unlikely to reach the age of 21. Okay, that's what it was. But if he had reached 21, he would have inherited a fortune from his grandfather. So his father, he adopted one from an orphanage, and then he sent him away to Europe to get treatment for his condition. Because even George C. Scott, who's, again, probably one of the smartest horror movie characters, especially for, this time of film, because around 1980, again, beginning of the slasher boom, people were making movies about dumb teenagers and how dumb can we make them. He's thinking like, okay, you have a 6-year-old boy, he kills him, no one's going to know about it. He adopts one, no one's going to know about it. He sends him away to Europe to get treatment for his, being crippled. He comes back, he can walk, he got cured, but he's 21 or he's 18. No one's going to recognize him. I guess that's the conceit anyway. And then, okay, that's who he was. And then that boy is now an elderly, but yet very powerful U.S. senator. So then another good portion of the film is George C. Scott trying to reach out to this senator to see if he knows about, his father's deeds and the family that he was brought into. Um, you even find out that this haunting has spread out to other properties that the family had owned. Like there's this one ranch, which he's looking for a ranch because that was one of the words that came up with the medium. And because he believes the body of the real son had been dumped in a well that was on that ranch. And this house where there's this mother and this young girl, the house was built over the well, and that's where the girl's bedroom is. And even though we don't see it, like the mother tells the story, and then we kind of see it. Like she says, my daughter had a nightmare about this sickly, pale boy trying to come up from the floor, just staring at her. But the way she told it was very creepy. And then we get a scene where, the daughter, who's now sleeping in the mother's bed, walks into her bedroom and we see like a glow on her like it's the ghost, but we don't see it. Kind of like the opening to Ghostbusters. But like with the way the mother told the story, we didn't have to see the ghost, and it's already effective and creepy. Plus the way she told it. So of course they dig up the floor. The well's been filled in, but they start digging, and they find the skeletal remains. And he finds a gold medallion with his name on it. And he keeps trying to get to the center. But of course, it's supposed to be that the senator is very powerful. Last name is Carmichael. So, like, when we see Carmichael Tower, it's like this. It's actually a weird shaped building. It's shaped like a upside down triangle. And then there's the skyscraper. He's up at the very top. Very powerful, influential guy. Like, at one point he gets a call and they're saying, like, there's this guy who's kind of been digging around. He even runs up to him as he's getting on a plane, and all his Secret Service guys have to push him off or carry him away as he's holding the charm. He sends this one police, is he a captain? Oh, he's a detective. Saying, the detective believes that George C. Scott is in a blackmailing scheme. He has, the medallion is something he stole from him. Which, of course, isn't true. And then, he leaves. And then we get this other cool scene where George C. Scott, he hears a noise and he walks by and looks at a mirror. And the mirror goes like, and then it shatters. But it shatters in slow motion. There's a few well done slow-mo shots in this. But like, as we see the mirror kind of bursting, we get the shot of the detective dead through a hole in a windshield. You find out he's had a freak car accident where his car just flipped over for no reason, and he's dead. There was one other really great slow motion scene. I can't remember where in the film it is, but someone takes a glass and throws it. And I want to say it was with the mediums. Or maybe the ghost actually did it, if it was with the mediums. But the glass hits like a cupboard. Very well done slow-mo shot. And I haven't even mentioned her, but Trish Van Devere is, I believe, a colleague of his in some way. She's helping him, sort of piece the puzzle together as he goes along. And he finally does meet with the senator who says his father was a very loving man. So we get the idea he has no idea about what happened before him. And he other reasons why George C. Scott is so rational is because when the cops take the skeletal remains out of that well, she says, you have the tape recording of the seance with Joseph's voice. And he says, tapes can be tampered. I know that. They know that. It's not going to get us anywhere. And then she says something about the charm on the necklace. He makes another point about that. He's like, I could have, anybody could have made that. He always has these rational thoughts of how, this isn't good enough. I got to do something else. Which is kind of nice in a horror film, especially a haunted house film, because you don't always get that. The climax of the film is where a lot of the crazy shit starts happening. Like George C. Scott being chased by the wheelchair. The house starts to shake, and he tries to appease Joseph's ghost, but he falls from the second story, and then the ghost just lights the house on fire. I'm guessing by means of however ghosts do that. And oh shit. The senator then looks, because he has a medallion of his own. He realizes George C. Scott was telling the truth. And so basically, the senator has the vision of, the Joseph's murder, and realizes everything is true. He suffers a heart attack. Trish Van Devere's character's named Claire. I haven't said that at all through this. She saves John, George C. Scott. The mansion burns down. And, they go to see the senator again, but they see his body being loaded into the ambulance. And then we see the wheelchair amongst the burnt ruin of the mansion, and then the music box begins playing by itself. And that's the Changeling. And, I think this is, even Variety says, a superior haunted house thriller. I would have to say this is the best made one I've ever seen. I mean, granted, Amityville Horror, absolute classic. Legend of Hell House, very fun, a Roddy McDowell film. House on Haunted Hill, I mean, the twist kind of undoes it, but it's known as a haunted house film. Very fun, a Vincent Price film. Hell, even Vincent Price has done a lot of haunted house and palace films. But this feels, the way it's shot, the way the characters are written and performed, the the story and how the story's written, it feels like a very intellectual, sophisticated haunted house story. And I was very impressed by it. I was trying to think of, I don't really want to say it's like a Robert Eggers film for back then. Like, you look at like what Robert Eggers did with like The Witch, and you compare it to films of that, witch films, like compared to, Lords of Salem or something. But, you know, uh, George C. Scott is a very rational, smart hero of the film. Very sophisticated. I'm going to keep saying that because for horror films of the time, and especially haunted house films, this one definitely has class, sophistication, intelligence, competence across the board. And I highly recommend it. George C. Scott is phenomenal in it. He's a great actor. The haunted house stuff, like the spooky shit that happens in it, is very simple and low key, but it's very effective. It can still be very creepy. I really like this film. Definitely, even though it might not be my favorite haunted house film, although it could be, but it is definitely the best made, the most competently made, sophisticatedly made, and intelligently and intellectually made. 1980s The Changeling, awesome haunted house flick. This has gone on too far. But yeah, Changeling, fucking awesome. Go see it, and thank you for watching.